Hey, what is up, everyone? It is I, the Big Boom, and today we are going to go over the current patch Brawlhalla tier list made by yours truly. So, I'm gonna start off with weapons, transition over to legends. I think that format's really good. Um, it'll hopefully help you guys understand my thoughts the best. So, starting out here, we're gonna go bottom to top. I think that will also make the most sense. Um, for the weapons, we're gonna talk about their matchups, what they're good at and what they're bad at, and in turn why they are where they are on the tier list. So it reads top down, left to right. So therefore, the worst weapon in the game, in my opinion, is Canon. So, what does Canon have? Canon has a strong ground game with downlight and sidelight, as well as neutral light. Honestly, the entire ground kit is extremely good. However, where it lacks is offstage presence when you are edgeguarding someone else, as well as air control. The only thing it really has for controlling the air is sidelight if they're really close to the ground, and nair. I personally believe that recovery is too big of a commitment, and for that reason, I think Canon is just the worst. I don't really see any matchup where it truly excels, and it is extremely difficult for a Canon to match a Scythe or a Gauntlets, and for that reason, it is the bottom of the tier list. So moving on to Lance. Lance is in a similar boat as Canon, where it really can't challenge from above if you are trying to edgeguard, but it also, where it excels as opposed to Canon, is I think it can control the air much easier with nair, and I also think dare is an extremely good option on stage. So comparing those two, I'd say Lance is a bit better, but just a tiny bit, because overall I'd say they're still the worst two weapons in the game, and they can't really challenge anything. Apart from Lance, I think has a good matchup into Scythe. So other than that, I would say that they're the worst two in the game as well. And then we have Axe here. I was debating putting Axe in C, but personally I think Axe is too slow. I've said this many times. Axe just, it doesn't have enough on the ground. Not even that. The risk reward is just too skewed towards risk for all of these weapons towards the bottom. You have to risk so much to get very little reward, especially on Lance and Canon. But with Axe, it's just everything is so slow on Axe. The aerial moves are easy to react to and dodge, so it's difficult to secure a kill. And for that reason, I'd say Axe is, my bad for that, Axe is just on the lower tier of weapons. Moving on to C tier, we have sword, hammer, and katars. So where Axe, Lance, and Canon really falter is their consistency, and these three weapons are all fairly consistent, and they also offer unique things about them, apart from sword, really. I think sword is the worst weapon that is seen a lot in the competitive scene, and although it is consistent and it does have very linear and easy to follow paths in combos and strings, it does so little damage and it has such a serious trouble with killing that it just has to be down here on C tier. Where sword is good though is it controls the stage extremely well with nair. I think nair is really like what's holding sword up this high, even because nair is just an incredible move and it's good to recover. Another thing about sword is it can challenge from above, and it also is not too bad at recovering because you do have control over where you are moving with the recovery. Sword really doesn't fare well against any of these top 3 tiers of weapons, and for that reason it is also C tier. Moving on to hammer. I think hammer is extremely good in neutral and extremely good from recovering. So if you're under, it's hard for someone to challenge you if they're trying to edgeguard you. But where it falters is it's difficult. There's like a sweet spot range for hammer, right? Where D-Light Sarah is easy to hit and it will kill early. But once you pass that range, it's difficult to find a kill on hammer because everything is such a huge commitment. It also struggles trying to keep other weapons off of it. So if you get in close against hammer, it's difficult for the hammer player to recover because similar to axe, lance, and cannon, the startup is way too long to be able to challenge, so you are forced to try to run away, and that's always a bad thing to be required to do. Moving on to guitars. I think guitars are really on the fence right now. The thing that, for me, that pushed guitars down is it is so hard to get a kill with guitars. I think guitars... So, the issue is, you have N-Light, right? And you have D-Light. They, in theory, they string into recovery, and that really does happen a lot of the time. The issue is that once you get into red, like get your opponent into red, it's so hard to find a solid kill confirm because there's only a few moves that really challenge anything. Like, you're not going to be terrified of guitars when you're in red because all they have to kill you is recovery or a move that leads into recovery. So it's just too hard to kill with guitars, and for that reason I'd say they're C. They also really struggle with getting in, and their risk reward is not that high. Sidelight into D-Light is really good, but the other moves, it's all reads, and I'll get to Gauntlets a little bit later, but you don't get that much from hitting a stray move as opposed to Gauntlets, which we'll get to later. But moving up to B tier, Spear. I think Spear is pretty solid, honestly. This is the line where I'd say B to Gauntlet tier is enough to be able to like solo main a weapon and get serious results. So actually I'm gonna turn this music down a bit. So Spear, it has pretty solid on-stage threat as well as a pretty easy, simple, and pretty powerful edgeguard with Dare and Nair and Ground Pound. So it's easy to rack up damage. You have a move in Sidelight which sets up for the opponent to have to do something or take the D-Light Sarah. I think Sidelight is just super important for Spear. And Spear also, I think, just totally crushes every single weapon below it. All these other weapons, Spear is faster than, and it can edgeguard, and just threatens way more against the higher tier weapons. I also think Spear Sarah is massively underrated. It kills so early, just like a raw Sarah, and it's so hard to punish. Landing Sarah, the hitbox is deceptively large, or deceptively small, I mean. It hits nearly stacked, and for that reason, I think Spear is B tier. Orb. So, I used to think Orb wasn't that good, but there was a massive bounce patch where Orb got lots of true combos, as well as recently, in the most recent bounce patch, it got a recovery buff, which makes it easier to recover as well as combo out of it. Not combo, but string out of it. And I think in general, Orb Sarah is just extremely hard to contest for every single weapon in the entire game. And the amount of combos that you have on Orb just out of any stray hit is enough to propel it to the top of this list, despite being a low ranged weapon, or a like shorter ranged weapon, I should say. The damage potential of Orb is also high, and getting one hit in converting it into a dodge read, or even just getting like a Scythe Dare Nair or something like that, is a ton of damage. And for that reason, I'd say it's B tier. And rounding out B tier, we have guns. The amount of players I see underrating guns because it's difficult to really regain control when you lose it is honestly too high. There is seriously something to be said about being able to throw out hitboxes away from you on maps like Small Brawlhaven or Enigma or Twilight Grove, not really Twilight, or like Blackguard, being in the center of the stage and being able to contest the sides of the stage. It is so powerful that you have to commit so little to hold stage control. And the punish game of guns, for a similar reason, because the hitboxes are so because you have so much range, the punish game of guns is one of the best in the entire game, because you can lead almost every hit into another one. The only one that's kind of iffy would be Enlight, and even then you still have the Nair follow-up or any kind of read that you have out of that. Gun Edgeguard is also really good, because unless you frame perfect dodge the down air, you will get caught out of your dodge. And similarly, ground pound kills extremely early, and if you catch the dodge with the dare and they're in lower HPs, you can for free convert it into a ground pound. Not to mention recovery off the top can lead to early gimps. And for that reason, I would say that guns are borderline A, but B tier. Actually, before we move on, where guns falter is they can't really contest, like Gauntlets on stage or off stage, Scythe on stage or off stage, or Bow on stage. And that's just such a detriment. And it's not even really guns being underpowered, it's just those other weapons being overpowered, in my personal opinion. Okay, so moving on to A tier, or this is the top tier, we have Bowen Scythe. So, Bow is absolutely insane on stage, because every move that you hit, you threaten tons of damage out of it. So Scythe or Sidelight, you threaten a downlight, which leads to an endlight. So you are forcing your opponent to either take the downlight or dodge in a way that Bow can always reach. There's no dodge against Bow Sidelight that it cannot reach and chase. And for that reason, almost that reason alone, Bow is crazy. But on top of that, Bow recovery is one of the best recoveries, arguably top 3 for recovering back to the stage, as well as down air and Sair leading to each other extremely well off stage, and ground pound killing so early off stage. So I think Bow is just incredibly strong currently, and I think Bow is actually one of the more healthy weapons. I'd say Bow, guns, orb, and spear are what every weapon ideally would be. So, okay. Scythe, I was debating putting them in Gauntlets tier, but I think where Scythe falters is, so you always see like crazy strings from Sandstorm or Ethan, but the crazy strings aren't really confirmed, and where Scythe is really bad is each stray hit, if you don't get the follow-up, that's all it is. It's just a stray hit. There's no true on-stage combos with Scythe, and converting can, although it seems, I'm sure, playing against it seems super easy, it's really punishable. And I think players are starting to understand this, but Scythe is just not the crazy beast on stage that I think some people make it out to be. Off stage, however, Scythe is absolutely ridiculous. Probably top 2 only to Gauntlets in the entire game. And personally, I think Scythe active input is just absolutely insane. I think most people would agree with me on that. It's almost always a guessing game against Scythe. There's nowhere safe. And while that's a good thing, it's just so hard because Scythe doesn't really have to burn much to go down there and edgeguard you. Not to mention, Scythe has a true kill combo off stage with dare into the wall into ground pound, and I think that's just crazy strong. And finally, Gauntlets in their own tier, Gauntlet tier. Honestly, Gauntlets are maybe the most overpowered weapon in any state that we've ever seen in Brawlhalla. Alright, so let's break it down. I think Sidelight, Nair, Recovery, and Sair are all massively overtuned. We can start with the on-stage gameplay. So, every stray hit that you get either forces the opponent into a guessing game scenario, or is a true combo into a move that forces the opponent into a guessing game scenario. So you have Nair. Nair true combos into recovery at every single point of the game, including when it kills. So if you have Nair into recovery, it's so hard to get to recover from that, because recovery is one frame into another Nair or a dare, and then you're just reset and Gauntlets have the advantage. With the grounded moves, you have D-Light, which true combos into dare, which forces the opponent into an extremely uncomfortable scenario because you're left in the air, and Gauntlets can chase you with Nair and get a reset. Or, if you fall to the ground, they can D-Light and D-Light dare again. And then Sidelight on its own is borderline unpunishable. I'd say it is unpunishable. An intelligent Gauntlet player will never get punished for Sidelight. That move is absolutely crazy, and any read that you get out of it goes into one of those moves that I just said, which gets so much damage. That's the other thing. That's one of the other things. Gauntlets do unreasonable amounts of damage. Gauntlet recovery does 2 more damage than sword side air, and that move is ridiculous. Gauntlet recovery, so hard to punish, leads into everything, and the combos are just so long and so easy to pull off because all the string starters are so easy to fish for that it's just so hard to gain any momentum against a Gauntlet player. That leads to my last point. Gauntlets have the best offstage in the entire game. Gauntlet Sair provides so much utility for the Gauntlet player that it's just ridiculously easy to return to the stage. Not only that, but it also has insane priority and insane force. So even if you're not just using it to get physically back to the stage, you threaten your opponent so much just by throwing the hitbox out. If you hit an opponent in orange with Gauntlet Sair into the stage, they get sent down into a free edgeguard. And like I said, this is the final thing. Gauntlet Recovery and Gauntlet Nair are just so free, and the confirms are so insane. Like, even if you miss a Nair, nothing's gonna happen to you. the stun time, not the stun time, the recovery time is way too low. It's just so easy for the Gauntlet player to spam, in quotation marks, but just throw out hitboxes for complete free. Just, it's insane. I'm not even speaking coherently anymore. Gauntlets are just that crazy. It's just the damage, the onstage threat, the offstage threat, the ability to recover, the combos. It's just, man, Gauntlets are crazy right now. And you guys are gonna see it tomorrow in the legend tier list. But almost every single Gauntlet legend is ridiculously top tier. Like, borderline the best legend in the game. Or the top, like, 20 legends. The top, however many Gauntlet legends there are, Gauntlet legends. It's just crazy. But that'll be all for me for this episode. Going over the legend, or the weapon tier list. Tomorrow, I'll go over the legend tier list. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll post a link to where you can make a tier list of your own. Share them with me down in the comments. If you aren't, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.